Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coloring Comics. This is the Art Lounge Alley. I am your host, and what you are looking at right now is beautiful work done by John Buscema, one of my favorite artists. This is an old school comic. I'm going to say 1982. It doesn't seem that old school to me, to be honest, but yeah, it's about, I'm going to say 40 years. Literally 40 years old. Yeah, it's beautiful work done by him. It's an adaptation, or is based off of the official comic adaptation of the hit film. So if you guys haven't seen it, I think you'll have fun watching it. I believe Arnold Schwarzenegger plays Conan the Barbarian. Similar story as well. But just to show you guys how amazing his work is and how expressive his figure drawing is, from the faces to body language to more expressions as well, and how he really does capture that in-between of comic books and realism. Like you could definitely tell by certain parts of the face that don't resemble realistic features, but at the same time they're very sophisticated lines. You know, you could tell that even in the hair, the highlights of the hair as well, that there's been a lot of work put into every single line. And of course the anatomy is spot on, I want to say, even in really small scenes like this, right? These small panels where it's literally a bird's eye view, and you could still see certain muscles there, even in the face as well. You could see detail there, so you could tell how much effort he puts into pretty much every single shot, every single panel, even in terms of the backgrounds as well. And I love this panel right here just because it really does show the dramatic effect of what's going on. You know, he is put to death, basically crucified on a dying tree, with looming death around him. You know, just inevitably, it looks like it's going to happen until he finally, and in the far distance, sees a figure coming towards him, which ends up being his friend. But just overall, seeing his work, his poses, you know, the action in his figures, the drama in the panel work, it's incredible work. I absolutely love all of his effort and his dedication to drawing. And similar to it, I want to, basically the goal is to draw the entire comic book from panel to panel, page to page, and complete it. So far, I'm going to say I'm halfway through the comic book. This is an old sketchbook that I recently finished. Every single page is drawn on. Just wanted to demonstrate to you guys, for those of you who are just tuning in for the very first time, how I use this small sketchbook. Basically, you know, it's a little bit bigger than the size of my hand. I still decided to do panels in each page and take time to draw them out as detailed as possible to the original. Of course, it's never going to be an exact, and it's not really the goal. The goal is to understand the process, learn from his shading techniques, his background, foreground, way of telling stories, expression, you know, panel work, camera work, coloring, like all those benefits coming from drawing these comic book panels, learning from John Buscema. So today I'm happy to say that I'm going to be doing some coloring. You know, the past few streams, or maybe the past 2 weeks actually, when it came to the stream, I was really inking panels. But I did some work over the weekend, inked the rest of these panels so that I could actually do some painting for you guys today, and I'm pretty excited about it. I haven't painted in a while, and I'm going to be painting using my new fascination with India inks. And this is what you're seeing right now. There's actually a special stream where I do a comparison between India inks and watercolor. You guys have seen me do on previous streams. And the way you guys could access those streams, including the special stream, is by going to the video section and filtering the videos based on collection. And you guys will see a folder specifically labeled Coloring Comics, as well as a highlights folder where you can find all the special intros, outros, where you will see the comparison of Coloring Comics and watercolor, where I go into depth talking about the benefit, really, what I like about India inks in comparison to watercolor. And it's not to say watercolor is bad or boring or whatever. It's just not what I was looking for specifically for this paper as well. Like, even though this paper is thick, watercolor just wasn't working out. It started to, if I spend too much time playing around with color, for instance, if I didn't like how the first layer turned out, and the color didn't exactly match what I was trying to make, I would have to go back and remix the colors and apply it again, and that would affect the paper, and the paper would slowly start to warp. As you guys could see in these previous examples here, even though it dried out and it kind of got a nice tone to it, it's still kind of warped on one side, and I really had to do quick jobs. Otherwise, too much water would get on the paper and it would start to warp even more. Whereas with India inks, that's not the case. They dry quickly, which is excellent because they create another coat, another layer, allowing me to, gotta shake this up real quick actually, away from the sketchbook in case it spills. Yeah, it would dry up and it would give me an extra layer. So if I was to go back and redo certain things, I would have an extra layer to work on top of, and it wouldn't be wet, so I wouldn't have to worry about that. It gave me more time to actually understand the color and mix properly. You don't have to use a lot. That's the other benefit to it. It's similar to watercolors that you guys have seen me do before, where just a dab, really, just a little splat. Well, with white, I'm gonna say it's a lot more. White is very useful in mixing colors, which you guys are gonna see me do in just a few minutes. So I'm gonna be doing this panel right here, which has some blues. I'm gonna have to find the right blue for it. And I'm gonna say it is just blue. I'm not gonna go with teal. I'm gonna bring out this this brush right here. It's a 0. I find it to be pretty useful for the size of the paper. You know, obviously, if I was to work on something much bigger, I would use a bigger brush to cover most of the areas. But I find this size 0 to be pretty good for the size panel. You know, it's about half the size of my hand. And even big areas, you know, and tiny details, it kind of works well. But that's for me. It's up to you guys to really explore that. There isn't really, you know, specific for that. So I'm working off of this panel right here at the bottom, trying to be very careful and gentle with this comic book because I feel like it's seeing its last days. It's newspaper print, so it's just so brittle. I want to try to avoid overworking it. I mean, as you guys could see, it's I'm gonna say it's like a little bit of green there actually. Like, yeah, it's some brown, but I'm gonna say a hint of green. So I'm gonna squeeze a little bit of green on here. To see what comes out of it, out of this mix. Just a drop. And the other great benefit to it is that you could wash out all this like as quickly as it dries. I thought the process of washing out India inks would be pretty frustrating, but it turned out to be okay actually. Just some water with some soap, and I was able to get most of it out. As you guys could see, this palette is pretty clean. Alright, so I mixed a little bit of green into this. And it seems about right. But I think I'm gonna add some yellow. Just a little bit of yellow. So green, brown, and yellow and white so far for this. And just a drop goes a long way. I'm almost positive I'm not even going to be using all of this. Yeah, that's about right. Squeeze some water for mixing. So I don't know if you guys can see it yet, but it works well. India inks, another benefit of them is that they work well with black. So I'm painting over these black details, and as you can see, it still retains itself. The black detail still retains. It's not being covered, which is what I was having an issue with watercolor. It's a little too dark there.
Look, you and me on the Charles River. I could die right now, Glenn. I'm just happy. I've never felt that before.
No. It's challenging. I'm starting to see, like, you know, a lot of this is basically little dots put together that produce a certain color. It's different than what I'm doing right now. This is all just like brushes, and it's very manual. Whereas I think for the process back then, what they would do is they would just put all the different dots together to create a variety of color. Like back in that time, the process was very much different. The colors were limited, so they had to do this like pointillism basically in order to achieve a variety of colors. So And that's probably why I'm seeing all these different colors combined together. Like a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of green, and brown. They're all kind of there, present, next to each other to create this like interesting skin color. Can't quite grasp it. One moment it looks more yellow, and next it's a little bit more brown. It's challenging. The only thing that I'm worried about, which I've noticed with India inks, is that they dry very quickly. So even the bottle itself, like I had a bottle of black India ink, and I haven't used all of it, that's for sure. And then I went back recently when I was refilling my brush pen to that same bottle, and most of it was evaporated. Even though it's closed pretty tight. Like the cap on it is tightly closed. So I think because of this like droplet tool, which is very useful actually, I found that to be challenging when I bought India ink, but it was a smaller size and it didn't come with this droplet tool. I was like, wait, how am I going to pour this into the palette? You know, if you tip it over, you're going to get a lot more, and it's going to drip at the side, on the side of the bottle, and it's going to be a mess. So I decided to go with the droplets, and you get more, actually, in those bottles. But the downside, I guess, is that eventually they evaporate. I'm just curious to see how long it's actually, like, now that I'm aware of this, I'm gonna gauge to see how long it's gonna take for it to evaporate. Like, I just bought them a month ago. Literally a month ago, I believe. So I'm gonna see how long it's gonna take. But, for example, I recently refilled the brush pen with black ink, and I noticed the first time I was using it, it was diluted because I washed it. I washed out the brush, I cleaned it out, so a lot of the water was still there. But now that I used it again, it dried up. You know, this is something that you guys have seen before, the brush pen drying up and me having to go and clean it to get the flow back into the pen. And it's only just a couple of days until that happens. So after I refilled it up with new ink, the great part is, even though it was pretty diluted in the beginning, a couple of days later, since it dries up, a lot of that water wasn't present, kind of evaporated, I guess. So the full richness of the black lines is back, but now the problem is that I know it's gonna dry out quickly. Just using a little bit of water I guess, to dilute it more, to give the colors and the inks a little bit more flow. To actually make them more transparent, because as you can see, I'm putting it over the detail and it's still fine. It's not covering up the black marks. And this is actually a really good panel for warming up, because it's not too many colors. It gives me time to just focus on making sure the tone is right. And just dipping it in water and just getting a little bit of color allows me to like fill in all these areas that otherwise would be covered by the color if there's too much color on the brush. So just another little technique when it comes to this. You could always go back on that layer once it dries and do another light coat to darken up, let's say, the color, which I think I have to do right up here. It's a little too dark up there. Let me just see if, since it dried up, I can go over it with like a lighter color. I'm gonna give it a rest, and I'm gonna let it actually, I don't know, this part right here is kind of bugging me. It's a little too green. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a little rest, let it dry up a little, and then come back to give it another coat. And see how that works out. And for now, I'm just going to focus on the hair, which means this is green. So I'm going to need to get blue out. I'm going to give it a little shake. And a drop. Now I do have this little jar here full of water to clean up the brush from all the other colors. I'm gonna give it a quick little rinse. And I have this rag right here. You know, I find that to be way more useful than paper towels. I think it's like wasteful to have paper towels for that. A rag is just as good, and it lasts for a very, very long time. So for those of you who are looking to have a setup, I recommend having that as one of them. Ooh, that's rich. I need to dilute that with white. Now it's like too sky blue. I'm gonna say that's pretty close. Probably the fastest that I've done it so far. Oh, and to add to the list of all the things that you learn from drawing from comics, coloring. That's another perfect example of the benefits. You don't have to worry about creating the content to do it, to practice, that is. And you don't have to worry about like creating something and inking it and spending all this time and then making all these mistakes. You know, this is the benefit of drawing from comics, is you're able to create all this stuff, recreate it, knowing that it's just for practice. It's to get a better understanding for things. So mistakes are welcome, you know, and it's totally fine. It's not like you're going to be ruining an original piece of yours that you spend a lot of time developing. Yeah, another perk from drawing from comics. It doesn't have to be that precious. You can make the mistakes. So I'm going to move on to the next panel and probably revisit the face before the stream ends. Yeah, it could be overwhelming having to do all those things, making sure that the camera angle is good, that the drawing turns out really good, that your inking is spot on, and coloring and all that. It could be a lot if you're dealing with your own personal work and also having to learn and practice all these things at the same time. So drawing from comics, picking a favorite comic of yours or your favorite artist, and just trying to take that opportunity to learn and practice all these different tools, all these different ideas, is a great way to speed up your drawing skills. So first I'm going to make sure that in order to save myself time of having to redip, let's say like pick a different color on a brush, do another part of this specific figure, color that part, and then having to redip and like remix the colors to do the same exact color on a different part of the image, I'm just going to make sure that everything in this panel that has that color is colored in. I feel like that's a shortcut. A little bit of orange there. Maybe too orange. Throw in some yellow and white. Moving on to the next color. I'm gonna go with like that brown. Seems to be about the same color as the skin tone over here. Probably darker though, not as much yellow and green there. It's like more of a black brown. Maybe if I had a little blue there, it might darken it up. Instead of black. Yeah, that's about right. Mixing colors could be that tricky, actually, and I remember that being a big part of learning oil painting, is that sometimes when you look at an image and you think, oh, that color is dark and it's like a black, Painting is going to be a lot different. So if you were to, let's say that you were to paint the inner part of the lips, that black line right in between, in oil painting, it's great to use like a mix of blue and red, to get a bit of a purplish color, mixing in a little bit more red and then making that line. And then from a distance, it gives it that illusion that it's a really dark shadow underneath the lip, and you can't really see at a distance. You can't really see that it's actually a mix of red and blue. It's like a bit of a purplish color, and that distance gives it that illusion as if though it really is a dark, almost black color. I mean, it's kind of similar to what you're seeing here with all these colors. Really, if you were to zoom in, you would see that it's many little dots next to each other of different colors that give this illusion. And that's kind of why I'm like mixing red in there and mixing green and all that stuff, is because it's slightly present. They're all right next to each other to demonstrate that. Or to create that color. So I did miss a couple of yellow spots. I'm gonna have to remix to get it. Didn't realize it. And then it's like a golden yellow for this crown thing that it's like some sort of jewel that he's holding. What's next? I'm gonna say the helmet. Which has some blues there, for sure. There's some blue dots there, there's some black dots. to give this idea that it's like gray. So I'm going to dab a little bit of black and see what kind of colors I could come up with. For those of you who are following along and you're using India inks, remember to close it tightly. As I mentioned, they do dry out very quickly, and you want to avoid that. So I got a little gray going on, and I don't think that's it. I think it needs to mix a little bit of blue in there. With that gray in order to get a color that's close to what I'm seeing. Still needs a little bit more blue. And maybe some white. Come on, pretzel. It's kind of playing some lullabies. I gotta monitor it from time to time. I get so into what I'm doing, I'm not really paying attention to the music. How that color will do for now. As I mentioned, just going to give it some time to dry out. And then once it hardens, I can come back and do another color over it. So I'm going to do every other color before jumping into the skin color. The most challenging one. You can't fudge that one. All these other colors, maybe I can get away with like a slightly different tone or something, but with skin color, you could immediately tell it's off. Something is not right. I think there's a little bit of blue there. As well. Alright, and now I'm using quite a bit of color actually for these panels, because I have to squeeze some now I have to squeeze some purple on there. Or violet for the robe of the cultist. Or should I say Conan, who's in disguise. Before he's discovered. It is a diluted color at the top, so I'm gonna add more white. Actually, even more white. Slowly coming to a close, ladies and gents, for the night. Do need to practice this more. As always, so much to do and so little time. You know, having to do other projects that I'm currently working on, as well as practicing inking, traditional inking and traditional coloring. Time management is like the most important thing when it comes to all this stuff. That's the only way to be able to do all of it, is really dedicating like an hour, let's say, on weekends for just inking, and then an hour dedicated just for coloring, to be able to practice all those things. It's no joke. Time is no joke. we're gonna complete this guy's robe, and then gonna have to call it quits for the night. It was a blast as always, everybody. It's always a pleasure to stream. And if you guys enjoy this content as well, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. They both help support the stream, have it branch out to a wider audience. And of course, it's greatly appreciated by yours truly. And make sure you tune back in tomorrow, same time and place, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for more figure drawing basics at 8 p.m. And I'm going to be doing the project stream tomorrow. I'm excited to get back on to like finishing up this project. It's coming closer and closer to an end. Well, honestly, I'm going to say the first half of it, I'm really coming close to the first half, because I'm also planning to color this one. And it might take some time, actually, because there's a lot more going on in comparison to the previous projects that you guys might have seen. There's going to be more colors. There's going to be more having to mix and match all of them together. So that's going to be the other half of it. But right now, I am getting to finish up the inking stage. I'm getting closer and closer to it, refining the image, finalizing certain features. So I'm going to be working on that. I believe that's probably going to take probably another week, if I don't work more on it over the weekend. Yet another thing I want to add to my schedule of having to practice coloring, traditionally inking, and also working on a project, or the multiple projects, really. So quite a bit of a challenge when it comes to like squeezing everything into a day's schedule. All right, y'all, that's enough ranting. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow, same time and place.